1 Peter chapter 2, verse 4 through 10, it says, "As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by humans, but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ." Say this with me. I am a priest. A priest. Now, this is a little bit interesting, and I gave this a long title. The long title for today is God's 4,000-year-old plan to make you a priest. And I want to discuss this. So I lived in Mexico for many years. I ministered there. In Mexico, 77% of the population considers themselves to be Catholic. And the Catholic Church, they don't have pastors, they have priests. And commonly, people would discover that I was a pastor, and they'd be like, "So are you a priest?" And the easy answer would be, well, yes, because that's what you call your spiritual leader, so pastor, priest. But the fact is, a priest and a pastor are different in function. So I want to read to you the definition of a priest. A priest is a religious leader authorized to perform sacred rituals of a religion, especially as a mediatory agent. I want to read that again. Especially as a mediatory agent. What's a mediatory agent? How many of you have heard the word mediator before? A mediator or a mediatory agent is someone who gets in between two people and facilitates the communication. In our society, the most common use of a mediator is when there's a divorcing couple and they can't agree on anything, they hire a mediator to come to an agreement together so that they can communicate, and that person goes back and forth because they might be so upset with each other that they can't think straight or communicate. And the mediator is a go-between between the two. A priest is a go-between. 1 Peter 4:9-10 says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood." Who is it talking about? Point to yourself. Me. A royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. So, oftentimes we look at something that happened in the New Testament and we think, well, it happened then. But really, the Bible is a long story. It starts at the beginning and it moves on through all of those different lives. Acts chapter 17, and if you've been here very long, you know this is one of my favorite verses. Because Paul in Acts chapter 17 describes who God is, what God did, and why he did it in a little nutshell, because he's trying to encapsulate a description of God to some people who didn't know. And during that, in verse 24, he says, God made the whole world and everyone in it. And then verse 26 says, God did that so that we would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him. Why did God make you? That's my question. Why did God make you? Because God wanted you to reach out to him in relationship. That was the point. Now, we know that he wanted that to be genuine and real, and so he gave us free will. And boy, has free will messed some things up a few times. But God kept adjusting and adjusting and adjusting and saying, I desire relationship, and I'm going to make it possible. We have this idea sometimes when we look back at history that there's only one way things could have turned out. I don't know if you've ever done that, but you look back and you say, well, there's only one way. And a perfect example would be, the Bible is the story of the Israelites. And we have King David and we have King Saul and we have all of that. But was that the only way that it could have turned out? See, God told the Israelites that he didn't even want them to have a king. In 1 Samuel 8, chapter 8, verse 6 through 7, it says, "But when they said, 'Give us a king to lead us,' this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, 'Listen to all the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king.'" So they asked for a king. Did God want them to have a king? He wanted to be the king. But he didn't want them to have a king, but they kept asking. So then what did he do? He said, okay. And he said, I'll help you choose a king. And he chose Saul. And then he went to Saul and he said, "Saul, if you obey, I will make your kingdom reign forever." Did you know he said that? God told Saul that if he had obeyed, his kingdom, his lineage, his dynasty would have continued. But then he didn't obey. And then God said to him, through the prophet Samuel, he said, "Because you disobeyed, now I'm going to give it to someone else." And we know who that was. David. And David became king. Now, we look at history and we think there was no other way. I mean, King David is such a famous guy. How could he have not been a part of he has to be plan A. But really, he wasn't plan A. King David, the most famous king of all, was plan C. I mean, plan A was that God remained the ruler through the prophets. Plan B was that Saul and his descendants would reign. Plan C was David. Now, this is important to understand because if we have a misunderstanding of the way God works, it can confuse us in the way that we plan our own lives. If you believe that one misstep ruins your life forever, then you know what you do? I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure God wanted to use me back when I was a teenager, but because I didn't do the right thing at the right time, I didn't take the job I was supposed to take, I didn't marry the person I was supposed to marry, I didn't do that, you know what? I think that I'm out. That's not how God works. Do you follow? Sometimes we have this idea that God's plans are like a sniper rifle. Now, I want you to think about this. When you shoot a bullet, you do all of the aiming in advance. You calculate the wind, you figure it out, and you pull the trigger. And once you've pulled the trigger, there's nothing else you can do. It's just wait for it to hit. And if you did it wrong at the beginning, it's going to miss. If you got it right, well, then you're in. Right? And a lot of us have that mindset of, okay, I got set up, I did things right as a kid, I did things right in the past, therefore I'm still on the right path and everything's going to work out. But if at any point it turns out that I'm in the wrong path, well, then I'm probably like a bullet and I'm going to miss and there's nothing I can do to change that. That is not the way the Bible shows us that God works. You can adjust. God is more like a GPS. How many of you guys use GPS when you're driving? Have you ever turned on the GPS and it says, whatever, go this way, and you get on there and then somebody makes a phone call or you get distracted and you miss the turn? Right? What does the GPS do? Does it get on and say, you will no longer reach your destination? No. In fact, sometimes your GPS will say, here are 3 possible routes. This one is shorter, but takes longer. This one is the fastest, but few more miles. This one is the best fuel economy, blah, blah, blah. It'll give you a couple of routes, and so you choose one of the various routes to get to the destination. And then if you make a turn that wasn't on either of those routes, it will just recalculate and suggest, hey, turn left at the next intersection, or make a U-turn. You see, God is like that, in that he has plans for us. He has purposes. He desires relationship with us. And I want you to say this out loud. Say, it is not too late. You say, too late for what? I don't know. Nothing. It's not too late for anything. Are you called by God to fulfill a purpose? Yes. Is it too late for you to fulfill that purpose? I mean, you messed it up because you didn't graduate high school, or you didn't go to the college you think you were supposed to go to, or you did this or that, or you bought the wrong car, you got the wrong job, you think you married the wrong person. No.
That's good.
God will adjust